To our top story, Ukrainian officials are blaming Russian missile strikes for major explosions and destruction in the eastern city of Kharkiv. It's not clear how many people have been hurt or killed. As rescue efforts continue, a huge convoy of Russian troops is closing in on the capital of Kyiv, and that is where our Charlie Daggett is covering the story for us this morning. Charlie, good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning to you, Vlad. President Vladimir Zelensky has called that strike against Kharkiv a war crime, calling it state terrorism on the part of Russia, and saying that the defense of the capital is now the key priority for Ukraine. A huge missile slams into the city administration building in Kharkiv's Freedom Square this morning. The number of dead and injured is not clear at this hour, but people are believed to be buried under the rubble and a rescue operation is underway. It's the latest salvo in what has become a full-scale Russian assault on Ukraine's second-largest city, including a series of indiscriminate rocket attacks that rain down on dense urban areas. The Interior Ministry says dozens of civilians have been killed. To the U.S., accused Russia by most countries.
The EU used the vacuum bomb today, which is actually prohibited by Geneva Convention. So, you know, the devastation that Russia is trying to inflict on Ukraine is large.
In a late-night address, Ukrainian President Zelensky described what he called the bombardment of Kharkiv as a war crime, laying blame on President Putin himself. Many fear the Russian president, at the end of his ever-lengthening table, is becoming more isolated, unpredictable, and dangerous by the day. The civilian death toll is climbing. This 6-year-old girl was injured by Russian shelling while out grocery shopping with her parents. Doctors fought desperately to revive her, but she could not be saved. Now, the capital itself may be in the crosshairs of an all-out battle. New satellite images show a massive 40-mile Russian military convoy on the move from the north. Russia's advance is leaving a trail of destruction in its path, wrecking villages and suburbs on the way. Ukrainian forces have put up stiff resistance so far, holding ground despite being outgunned and outnumbered. But the real test lies ahead as the war enters a dangerous new phase and this city of more than 3 million people braces for the battle to come. What many fear now is the bombardment of the capital, and overnight the Ukrainian president pleaded for a no-fly zone. White House has already dismissed that, saying that is not a good idea. I'm Maria Glad.
Charlie, I want to ask you about on Kharkiv, and just give us a sense of what the area is like. Freedom Square, what is it like? We're hearing from Ukrainians that there are no military targets in the area, so this couldn't have been a mistake. But I'm wondering, is it an area that is busy? Would there have been a lot of people there?
Grand Canyon University, a Christian university, is the largest universities in the country. Online students at GCU received a
Well, I mean, Freedom Square is the center of Kharkiv. Whether it would have been busy, unlikely, and that office building would not have been full. Although we understand the early estimates are at least 10 people have been killed, a number more have been wounded, 10 people have actually been pulled out of the rubble. But you saw the magnitude of that strike. So it's a symbolic strike as much as anything else. I mean, really right in the heart of Kharkiv itself. But it is in a residential, densely packed urban area, and that's why leaders here are saying that is a war crime. You are not avoiding civilian targets, you're actually targeting civilian areas. There is no military target anywhere in that region, and there isn't any military target in that region. However, you have to know that, you know, government buildings aren't necessarily off limits in terms of targeting. This is all about demilitarizing Ukraine, and certainly here, we avoid any government buildings or anything like that you saw in Freedom Square. Now, in terms of how many people are out, you have to remember, Anne-Marie, for the past couple of days, that place has been coming under huge, heavy bombardment. And they've been given the same warnings that we've been given here. That is, stay indoors unless you have to get out. And if you have to go out, get out and come back as quickly as you can. A lot of people are hanging out now 24 hours a day in some of these bomb shelters. Well, not bomb shelters, but subway stations turned into bomb shelters. But get down into your basements, because these attacks could come anytime, and they could be anywhere. So not nearly as busy as it would have been. And because of the bombardment that's been taking place in Kharkiv, the place is surrounded for the past 48 hours or so. You would have thought that most of the people were staying indoors and trying to avoid it, but not all of them. I mean, you saw those pictures. There are cars driving around in the central square, people walking around. You know, not everybody is hunkered down.
The other pictures we've all seen, Charlie, are those satellite images of that 40-mile-long convoy of Russian troop vehicles headed towards Kyiv. How close is this convoy? And I worry, because it is frightening to see just how long. Look at this image here showing these vehicles headed towards Kyiv. And for the last 5 or 6 days, the whole world has been applauding the pluck and the spirit of the Ukrainian people in the face of this enormous adversity. But this is really frightening.
And Charlie, I also want to know what's in that convoy? What's it made up of?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were told this morning it was 17 miles away, so whatever is happening, it is moving very slowly, and it's taking its time getting here. It is as much a threat as anything, and it's coming from the north. Now, whether it's now going to distribute itself or head to the center of the capital, that's a concern. And, you know, you're seeing those satellite images. The news is all over. Those satellite images are all over the news here, too. Like, everybody here in Kyiv, they're bracing for what this is going to be. 40 miles long. In terms of what it is, from the images that we can make out, and experts have said, you've got tanks in there, you've got armored personnel carriers, you've got logistics, you've got resupply, essentially everything that you would need to launch an invasion of a certain magnitude. 40 miles long. So that's the real question. As you said, the Ukrainian forces have been able to hold them off. And you've also seen these images where they've been hitting these convoys, nothing near the magnitude or size of what we're talking about that's headed here. And they've had great success in stopping some of these Russian convoys in their tracks, including Kharkiv. You know, the push is on in Kharkiv. It's the country's second largest city, but it hasn't fallen to the Russians. So they're putting up the good fight there. The vast majority of defenses, as we understand it, and as the president said, the main concern now is to defend the capital. Will have pulled back in order to defend the capital. So where is that convoy going? Is it going to spread out? I mean, it's obvious. It's an obvious target. What does the Ukrainian military have in terms of taking that convoy on? What kind of air suppression or support do the Russians have for that convoy to continue, you know, uninterrupted? But that is where we're going to see the next front line. And if the Ukrainians can do it, the Ukrainians can do it, they're going to want to hold them at bay before they get anywhere close to the capital itself.
Yeah, Charlie, thank you very much.